a little bit of.
Well, I've been impressed with y'all's work so far.
Oh, thank you.
Very professional.
Thank you.
We'll let it go downhill after this.
Oh, yeah.
No pressure.
I never hold my breath.
Well, I talked to Dee yesterday. I managed to get a very nice recommendation of the person or company that we'll be looking at the low bid. And
Yeah.
they've got quite a history, and I was able to get some information on that. I'll share with you.
Yeah, John Larry's the only one probably on this board that really knows much about building things.
I beg your pardon.
The rest of us think we do.
I've been building on a cabin for the last 4 years.
I'll try to remember.
Michaela, we have some water and coffee out there. Guys, we have water and coffee,
Thank
some
you.
sodas.
But I don't see the candy on the desk here. I'm
You know what?
waiting for chocolate.
I am, yeah, we've got some snacks up there, but yeah, our big snack thing was moved. But yeah, we had small bowls out here before.
Or cakes and donuts.
Mhm.
Well, we have a D appreciation little thing at the end here for D, so, and
And right,
D and break, so. Break, like I said. break is
hopefully he
coming on.
comes back. Yeah, I don't like the sound of brakes having an emergency.
No, I don't.
That
No,
is
it's
not
scary.
good.
Well, let me ask you a question. Is there any board in this county you haven't been on? Did any come to mind right now?
Yeah, I have stayed away from anything that had to do with medical. That whole deal is a mystery to me. Talk about not knowing something about something. That's big time. Yeah, I was on the Education Foundation and then still on the stormwater and pathways.
Travis? Travis makes a
So
quorum.
now you have a
Yeah,
quorum.
Travis is here.
It's about time. Are you
Travis.
like working or something?
Fast as I could. Almost
Okay, I'm
called, but
guessing you didn't wear that when it was 48 degrees this morning.
I sure did, and Blake gave me a hard time for it.
Well,
He said it was ridiculous, inappropriate.
But you looked at, you said, no, sunny weather, it says 72 later, this will be fine. It's fine. You know,
South Texas.
short sleeve and an undershirt, you're good.
Just shake. for the
We
first 4
agreed.
hours of the day.
We agreed to disagree. I was fine. He didn't,
He was in his jeans and boots and shirt, so
He
he was
wa-
good.
he did, he looked dapper and he did not come off his stance. He told me that was absurd. We moved on. I stuck with it. I wasn't about to change either. It was a little chilly.
no, you'd have been giving in. didn't
That's
you?
exactly right, Jack.
I would have thought y'all might have had a more rigorous dress code going there, but it's not.
How are you?
About 5 minutes.
Good.
Yeah, show will proceed.
Travis, have you met John Dykeman?
Nope, but I figured that's who that was.
That's who I
Travis
am.
B. David, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
He was introduced before you got here, so.
I figured that's why I wasn't gonna make him do it
Oh, my
again.
goodness. Here we go.
I came to one meeting, I guess, a couple months ago, that bunch of y'all.
No, I was spoken to you through the,
Citizens online. We heard-
Oh.
We could start it up, Steve, if you want.
Yeah, let's go ahead and start. I hear that concerns me about Franklin. Note the presence of the meeting, let's call it to order. Item
You got
2.
the presence of a meeting?
Jack, I wasn't gonna call him out on it.
It just sunk in.
It's time for me to go, Jack.
We have a quorum and a meeting. We're good.
You know, it's hard to get respect around this
I was
crowd.
gonna
There's
say,
nothing- there's nothing-
if you wanna stay.
Lord have mercy.
There's
Okay.
nothing to add.
Note the presence of a quorum, let's call the meeting to order quickly. First, item 2, consideration action on the minutes of the November 15th meeting. I'll entertain a motion anytime.
I'll move approval of minutes.
Second. Moved and seconded, further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Let me sign.
I still want you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Right there in front of you.
Never mind. Got it back.
Yeah, rough good one.
You look a lot cooler.
What'd you do?
You want another one or are you good?
There's one, you have one, we have another one right there. He's 2 for 2 right now.
He's already done.
There we go. I assume it's the same thing. Okay, do we have any citizens to be heard? Here
No, sir, not on,
Here.
not online.
remotely. Okay, hearing none, let's move on to item 4. Consideration and possible action for awarding a bid for the improvement of headquarters to AAC&D, ACAD building. As all the board members are aware, we've been trying to get this done since Uncle Harvey visited. And we got into this office and we're now at the point, and I'll let Mike and John talk about the bids that we received, the recommendations that you make. Jack has some input on that, and then we'll see if we can craft a resolution to go forward.
This board will remember that in the last 2 or 3 meetings that we had conversation subsequent to the flood event on July 7th. The recommendation on the board was to employ the services of Dykema, Levy Dykema, for architectural services as they relate to both the scope of work that's to be done, to lay out the bid package, to oversee the construction events. And so John laid out a kind of a scope of work that he has on behalf of the district. We are now to the phase where the bid has gone out for the requisite number of weeks. We had it on, I think, advertised for a number of, I want to say 5 or 6 weeks, more than 30 days. We had 14, I want to say, 14 people that were signed into the pre-construction meeting. And we had 4 or 5, I think the latest number was 5 bidders. And then part of the scope of work for the architect is that he does the rubric or the metrics associated with each individual contractor that bids, and then he makes a recommendation. So I'm going to turn it over to Joe.
In the older days, we used to bid basically based on price. That changed 10 or 20 years ago, where we put a qualifications factor in there, because sometimes a low bidder just really wasn't the guy you wanted to have bid the project. It had to be an objective analysis, because you couldn't give it to your brother-in-law kind of thing. Anyway, we publicly bid the project. We had 5 responses out of about 12 contractors that actually requested plans. The low bid is the one you always start with. Progressive Structures used to be owned by a guy named John Baldrick, who's retired. We've done a lot of projects with John Baldrick over the 40 years I've been practicing. His son now runs the project, Craig, and Craig seems like a very nice, reputable guy. And if you look at his proposal, he had a bunch of projects very similar in nature to this, which is kind of one of the key things you look at. You know, has he dealt with the problems that come up with this kind of project? We visited with Craig 3 or 4 days ago and talked about his bid, talked about his subcontractors, asked him if he had any reservations. Do you see a problem and all that? And he said no. He was comfortable with his bid. His bid for $331,000. The next low bid was about $12,000 more. So it's a fairly small percentage increase. Sometimes when you get bids, if some guy's way low, it throws up a flag, because what has he forgotten? Something. But Craig's happy with his bid. So we see no reason not to recommend you all approving him to do the work. Mike, I don't know if your lawyer wants to, if you decide to go with Craig, if your lawyer wants to put together the construction contract and all that kind of stuff. But I know Craig's ready to go. I think it's important to act promptly, because these bids are only good, these days for a very brief time. Some suppliers won't even quote prices until you sign a contract with them. because that's how fast things are changing. But as of now, I think Craig's happy with his number, and so our recommendation is to go with Craig Baldry with Progressive Structures.
Just to reaffirm that John has gone through a metric that not only looks at the lowest price, but looks at a whole number of things, many of which that metric was based with my attorney, and then there was a back and forth between my attorney, the Chapman firm,
Right.
and John, so that we incorporated that into the bid package, and as soon as any changes that went through the big package, John disseminated that information throughout all of the bidders that requested bid documents. The district has put its faith in and was reaffirmed by this board to go on the recommendation of John Dykema or the Dykema firm, Levy Dykema firm, and we're still in that position. As it relates to, can this board act on this, in good faith? I'll draw your attention to, I have in your documents there, one of the things that I have is the renovation funds packet right here. And you'll see that the number, our best estimate of what we currently have on board to execute this contract is we have 388,000 and change. That number's not entirely accurate. We're gonna have a little bit more money as it relates to when that building's done, then we get a little bit more flood money from our insurance company. But this is what we have on hand right now. Our best estimate is 388. You can see that the contract that we have in front of us is 331, so we can execute this contract as far as I'm concerned.
This 388 derives from the insurance that we received on 601 South Church office building, which was completely destroyed in Harvey. We got the full insured value, and we had to pay something to clear the lot. Subsequently, about 9 months after Harvey, we found this building for sale, not this building, but that building, and purchased it for just under $600,000. And then we sold the lot over there. And so we have set aside that money by and large. And what that means is there's no net additional cost to any of the entities as a result of this. Of course, they've already done their budgets and got things set, and it would not have been a good thing, in my opinion, since most of them have met with no net new revenue. You get
My
your emergency
apologies, I got
straightened
my-
out?
Yep, I did. Thank you for your flexibility.
Well, Lord, that's good.
Mike scared me when he said I was going to be the quorum unless he showed up. So
Uh,
thank you for that.
I was burning it over here.
I know that.
I was gonna call and tell him, but it was gonna be a minute late. Wasn't
My apologies.
As
Who on
always,
the
he
call?
slithered under the door at the very last second.
I was going to show up 10 minutes early today, so my average on time would be better than it was.
I appreciate you doing it the way you did.
Thank
It makes me look
It
a
makes,
little
it
bit
makes
better.
Travis look better.
Damn.
Well, it makes life tonight much easier. I really feel that.
Okay, having dealt with all these work problems, there's no net increase to the interest.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
What's the timeline or proposed timeline on this project once we engage?
I don't know. It was not, we did not ask for his construction schedule in his bid. We usually do, but for some reason we left that off. I know it's in everyone's interest, including his, to get it done as soon as possible.
If you had to
So,
guess.
I probably, depending on when the contract gets signed and when he's got approval to proceed, I'd probably 3 to 4 months.
Don't be surprised if we find some material shortages along the way.
There will be shortages, and then
Yeah.
you'll dig into a wall and find the shag nasty that you didn't know you had.
Well,
And they're done.
let me take a minute and tell you what I found yesterday. The name Progressive Structures was familiar to me, but I just didn't know a great deal about it. So I contacted 2 individuals, still work for the bank that I retired from. They knew a whole lot more detail. And even after their comments, I was given the name of Terry Allison, who is Allison Floyd. And Terry knows the family well. I hate to pass on to you, but the father passed away.
Oh, yeah.
Mother ran the business for a while. The son's been at the helm, running it along with dad and mom for a number of years, so he didn't just jump into it. They incorporated in 1980. They've done a lot of projects in Corpus Christi and the surrounding areas. So all the recommendations that John brings to the table were just fortified by what I found out yesterday. So very capable.
That's good. It's nice when the plan comes together. Really is. If there's no further discussion at this point, I would entertain a motion that sort of the effect that we would accept the bid of Progressive and authorize Mike, as chief appraiser, to work with Dykema to get the contract put together and signed ASAP, and this thing underway.
So moved.
And I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Right,
Just a question for clarification. John, what, if anything, is included that would help avoid or mitigate flood in the future? I know we've talked about dikes, we talked about special doors.
Nothing in the current construction plans. We've got ideas that you could use to provide a dam essentially around the building up to a certain height. That was included in this phase in order to keep the price down, but there are some, we have some ideas.
Okay, and I wasn't clear about that. To me, it's very important that we give serious consideration to doing that into the new year. This is going to happen again.
I think the thought is, Rankin, I can't speak to you in the future, but that I think that was sort of a $60,000 price tag.
Yeah, that was our guess. Essentially, we've got the idea for what, so you know, is they make coatings that waterproof masonry.
Mhm.
So basically, we paint the exterior of the building with this special waterproofing paint, seal up the weep holes. So we don't let water get through the masonry into the vapor barrier and then back out through the weep hole. We just seal it. And then they make dam, and we raise the windows up a few feet. And then at the doors, they make dams. You can put in the door jamb with an inflatable gasket. So when there's a storm, you drop this thing in, and it's 2 or 3 feet tall, and you basically dam up the perimeter.
Does that happen automatically or does?
No, you could, but more practically, you keep in your closet. Because when that kind of storm's coming, and you go out there and slip these things in.
Well, I hear what you're saying. I've belonged to First Presbyterian Church and we had sandbags set, but nobody could get to the church.
Yeah, well,
And nobody could get here to do things up. So, and again, we don't need to discuss that now, but we need to have something so that if it comes at 3 a.m, Mike's not scrambling his kids up and everybody to come over here and do things, if you could even get here. At any rate, that's.
I mean, we could look at the technology, everything costs, so it just depends on how you.
And to that point, Brink, it's a great and valid point, because my concern is where your concern lies. My immediate concern was the effectual renovation of the interior. And then this next coming year, we could bid and plan for that event and have funds for the next budget cycle and get that done this next cycle. I mean, that's where my mind is at.
And this would have an impact on the entities as opposed to not doing that.
Right.
But I think it's, I don't disagree with you that it would be a good thing to do, looking at what happened. And particularly looking at what's going on with the Concho Street drainage project.
Thank you. That segues what I was about to say.
Yeah.
Not that I'm making light of it or being sarcastic, but we need to lobby the city and the NAV district to stop playing hardball just because they want to and get this drainage project done.
I was gonna say, because the project you're doing is significant, and if it actually gets to empty somewhere, it's gonna it should have a drastic impact on some of the problems we saw, especially here, which is clearly a drainage issue. When we have a storm surge, that's all bets are kind of off on that, and it's kind of a dip, but this drainage hopefully will help if they get to continue, if they complete it.
Even if that project should go forward fairly promptly, which I don't know whether it will or not, probably ought to seriously consider this, because this is pretty low out here.
It is.
Yeah, and it's, as I think about it, if this were my house, I would do it as a top priority. And as a member of the board today, I would urge the board in the future to get this done as quickly as possible. I mean, I'm a proud South Texas conservative, but I'm also looking at all this stuff that's happening from a climate standpoint. Climate change is real, and we need to act accordingly. You know, a lot of unusual things have happened in the past year across the country. And our rain last July was an unusual situation. We're going to, what's the unusual is going to become more the usual, I would suspect, moving forward. I've said my piece.
That's good.
Well, I think it'll be up to the board next year to carry this forward, get it in the budget and sell it to the entities.
Yep.
Well, and the good thing is this project gave us the opportunity to look at some of those possible solutions. So we won't be starting from zero.
Yeah, and this scope of work, to that point, this scope of work actually removes all of the low windows and bricks them up. So that part is fixed, and the weep holes are actually included in the scope. The future scope would be the waterproofing sealant, the attention to detail at the bottom plate, some kind of waterproofing, the intentionality there, and then the damming to the two entry points to the building. So good.
Okay, we had a motion, made and seconded that we accept the progressive bid, and we authorize Mike working with John to get the contract completed and get this underway and done. Any further discussion?
I'd add one small comment. Mike and I talked about it. In remodeling, there's always stuff you don't expect. And so for budgeting, there is some extra money, which is good.
Yeah.
I don't know how it'll be absorbed, but
You suggested the 20%, as I recall.
yeah, normally we do
66,000.
less in remodeling. You just don't know. So
We
just a
got that covered, or almost covered. It's
Yeah.
not quite, but it's almost, without having to go back to the entities for any,
you should be fine with that.
that was kind of my feeling too, not that know any more than I do about it.
So I have a quick question on that. Well, I don't know if it's appropriate here if we want to talk about it during budgeting time, because this is clearly the one to go with. But when we talk about the cushion and the 20%, we've got rent on this building, which is $5,000 a month.
3,500.
Just south of
Hang on.
4,000.
It's in this, in your breaking sheet here.
It's fine. Without knowing how fast this can start and how long the construction project will be, if we have overage to eat into our $58,000 cushion, we will, I assume, have to, where's the rent gonna come from for this thing?
We have 3,500 a month is what we have. 3,500, because we have, at the bottom of this, we have 10,500, and we were kind of middle of the month in October when we started. When our funds from the insurance company said they would no longer cover. And so I think I'm almost certain it's 3,500 a month. So 3,500 a month that we're looking at, let's say on the outset, 4 months. So times 4, we're looking at $14,000 there. So on top of the 331, well, you do 331.
You're okay with no cushion. No, my question was just, I just keep that in mind as we move forward, that we have the rent and that we need to keep cushion for the project.
Yeah, the meter is running on this
That's
building.
exactly right.
Right.
Okay, further discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Okay. We're ready to go.
I'll wait to hear from you, Mike.
Okay, sounds good, John. Thank you for your time.
Okay.
Thanks. Yeah, John, thank you.
I'm not doing it. I'm almost done.
Thanks, John.
Yes.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Merry Christmas.
Okay. Glasses on. Moving on to item 5, consideration and possible action regarding proposed adoption of Public Funds Investment Act policy.
Can
I speak to that?
Yes,
And Mike and I talked a little bit about it. Changes that are in the policy are just required by state law. The interesting thing about the appraisal district is that other than the checking account, they have no public funds. And so there's not really any reason for us to do it, but it's required of all entities. If we ever got a large enough budget, and something, we might do some investing, but frankly, it just sits in the checking account at Prosperity Bank. The coverage in the language covers the bank agreement. And the bank does, oddly enough, put up, what'd you say, $250,000?
$250,000 is the apportionment in which they start doing pledge reports. So
Pledge
reports, securities, they stack on top of each other.
Right.
On top, 250, 250, 250, until all of your funds are covered.
And they give you updates to show you that that's in compliance. And of course, the account is with them. I don't know, what's our typical bank balance?
I want to say it's right now it's like 900 and change.
So you've got securities pledged above the 250, which is covered by insurance.
That's correct.
And they meet that requirement. And that's common.
Yeah.
It would be nice if we had some investments or if we chose to put that money out there, but I think you got enough on your plate without having to do that.
Yes, that's correct.
There is no, unlike pool funds for school districts and the like, there is no place where you can deposit funds, which are appraisal districts around the state that get managed. So kind of on your own.
Yeah.
well, and we don't accumulate a lot of cash in the Starbucks on purpose. This has been an unusual couple of years because of these insurance payments, which we knew we were gonna have the purchase of that building and the renovation of this building. But get those built up too much, then you really need to start thinking about rebating them to the entities. I remember that lecture.
Yeah,
You never go to live that down or let me live it down.
No.
It's fine. You won, I lost.
no,
You pulled rank is what you did.
No,
Well, that being said, I would, because it's required in the law, is that we adopt the language changes in the.
it's driven by legislative language changes, so.
and the substantive changes here are actually the documentation in the act. So
Just transferred them over.
I just moved them over and put them in Word.
I'll entertain a motion to accept the policy. Second. Okay, made and seconded, further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we've got that. Okay, item 6, consideration of possible action regarding appointment of an agricultural advisory board.
So I've made some contact with some of my board members, not all of the board members, so I don't have anything to present to you today. But last year, we made a recommendation and we had a meeting that was early in 21. We're running about the same timeline now, so at the next board meeting, I should have an ag board to submit to you, and I'm gonna have a meeting shortly thereafter with the ag board, so there's no action for you today.
But you've got some people that are willing to serve.
I've got some people that are willing to serve, but I need more.
Okay.
And some are coming off,
Set the
so
hook on
I know.
them as soon as you can. Okay, well, we'll just move on past that item then. Okay, item 7 is a closed executive session concerning the chief appraiser's evaluation. So we can clear everybody out.
All right.
Board
May
members,
I ask?
turn off all the spyware.
I realize it's not ordinary.
Like everything's standing.
Hang on, Michaela.
Oh,
I
sorry.
realize it's not ordinary to ask somebody to sit in on a closed session. Seeing how she will be a seated board member.
I have no problem with
Closed
that.
session items are not discussable, then I recommend that she stops.
Okay.
All right,
Okay,
This-
the Zoom has to.
this,
You want me to stay?
Yes.
Okay, that
so
was it in a
leave Zoom
nutshell.
up, but
You can,
close the camera and turn off the.
you gotta ensure that that mic is off.
Yes, but it's one of these, 8 feet wide, hurricane proof, you can't blow it in. The house will fall down, but the door will still. And she just couldn't move it. And I knew she had to be there, so I figured you guys would carry on without. it.
Yeah.
Like reminded
I
me.
think you made a good choice.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
You're sure, you're confident.
It was an excellent choice.
That was a good choice, Bree.
Is the power back on now?
I had no idea. I was scared that get any later coming down here.
Okay, we went into executive session at 2:30, we exited at 2:45. And went right up to the minutes and that one was sent to me and we'll file it with this. That brings us then to the chief appraiser.
As a point of action, prior to the chief appraiser's report, on item number 5, there is a resolution that's in your documentation that is associated with the Public Funds Act. I just wanted to be sure that D, you're going to sign the Public Funds Investment Policy and the resolution.
Okay.
You don't have to, like you said, you don't have to read the resolution into the record because it's part of the thing,
No.
but it is important that you sign both documents. So moving into the chief appraiser's report, I can do this kind of concurrently. The very first one is the supplemental role presentation. We're required to give this to you again. It's for you to purview. There's really no action. There's no action on individual items, but you can look at it as a whole. You'll look at the summary of certified role changes, assessed value. You can see the sections of the property tax code and the year in which the supplement changes are done. You'll remember, and Michaela, this is for you, in the way a certified report works or certified totals work, it's like a sealed scroll. It's like I scroll it up and I put my stamp on it and I say, here's the values. And I hand them to all the entities. Every time we do any kind of change as it relates to homestead over 65, whether we increase value or decrease value, there's a section of the property tax code that applies to that, and we have to tell you why. So we have to tell the board why, and most importantly, we have to tell the ARB, which is the Appraisal Review Board, why we're doing that. And so this is just a summary of that report. You'll notice that most of these have parentheses on the value. That's a negative change or a declination in value. Some of them you can see is just a 0, which there's no impact on the assessed value itself. Like you can see on group number 376, for example, it's just a freeze, refreeze report, and there's zero value change here. Moving forward, we have groups 374, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, and 84 here. You'll see that this early group, 374, we were still doing some late hearings at that time. You'll move forward, you'll see just refreezes.
And Mike, stop on 374. Talk to me, what is motion to correct over third or quarter appraised value?
Okay, so-
What goes into that line item?
Sure, there's a section 2525 of this property tax code that revolves around a motion to correct from either an appraisal district or a property owner. Most often it's a property owner's motion to correct. And what that is that there's 2 avenues in which a person can protest. There's section 41 of the tax code, and then there's 25 of the tax code. Now, what's the difference? 41 is the normal protest. Hey, here's your appraised value in May. We have your value at 350,000. Well, I think it's only worth 285. Okay, that's your protest, your normal protest. That falls under 41.
Okay.
After a roll is certified, you can only protest under 25, and the burden of proof shifts. You can't just go from 350 to 348,000. That difference is not big enough. You have to be able to prove that the motion to correct is over by more than 1/4 or 1/3. Now, what's the difference? 1/4 has to do with residential homesteads only. 1/3 can be with any other type of property. And the burden of proof shifts to the property owner to prove that the value is off by. Now, it happens sometimes that they can actually prove that. But most often, I say most often, about half the time we prevail because they can't prove that it's over by more than 1/3. They might be able to prove that, like, again, this is hypothetical, 350 down to 340,000, but they can't prove that it's over by more than 1/3 or 1/4 in this, in the case of a residential property.
Proof to who?
The ARB.
Thank you.
The ARB makes the decision.
Okay, that was my question. And then under arbitration award, we got 3 columns. What is the second and third column and why is it different than the first? Am I missing some of that years or what?
I don't know the answer to that.
Because they're bigger. I mean, we got a 30,000 number, then we have a $2-3 million numbers. What is?
I don't know the answer to the,
Did we have 2 separate $3 million arbitration awards?
no,
Negative?
not to my
I
knowledge.
mean, those would be significant takedowns. I figured we'd remember them if we had them.
The arbitration awards are, well, what I can answer for you is this, that arbitration awards are actual arbitration. So after a section 41 protest, a person has an avenue to do what's called an arbitration. So they have 2 things after, they have 3 possible things after. One, I file a 41 protest. And let's say that I'm a citizen and I come to the board and they deny me. They agree with the district that the value is correct. At that point, a property owner has 3 things that they can essentially do. They can file a motion to correct because they think it's 1/3 over. They can do a suit or they can do an arbitration. This falls under arbitration. And so when you have an arbitration, you actually have an arbiter who is delineated by, it's a group of individuals that are delineated by they're selected by the comptroller to arbitrate all around the state. And so they make their case again, basically to an arbiter. And sometimes we win, sometimes the district wins, sometimes we lose. And the way it's decided you have a value and then you have a value that's indicated by the property owner. So it's not 1/3 or 1/4 because it's not section 25. It's just going to some outside arbiter. And basically they make their case. And if it's closer to their number than it is our number, then they win and we pay the fee. If it's closer to our number than their number, we still make the change that they indicate, but we don't pay the fee. And it's like a $400 or $500 fee. It's dependent on how much value we're talking about. The answer, Travis, is I don't know what 3rd and 4th columns are, or the 2nd and 3rd columns are. I can get that answer to you in the next meeting.
No problem. Thank you.
There's a homeowner paying the fee if they don't permit.
That's correct. They pay the fee if they do not prevail. And that's a summary of the certified role changes. All right. The next one is the financials. You can see that we have through October, I believe, or is it November? In November, but they're pretty fairly accurate. And the sheet will look like this. And you can see that we have January through November, so that represents 11/12, which is 92%. You can run all the way to the bottom and see that we're at total expenses of 94.3%, so that's within 2% of that number. Obviously, we've talked about this to a great degree. The largest overage is the legal fees. That's been a thorn in our side that we've talked about at every financial meeting, or every time I've done a financial report. It's the legal fees associated with suits. We've had a couple of suits, just to let you know, we've had a couple of suits that have gone off recently. Basically, they've not pursued a suit, they've done an action to non-suit. They give the district notice that they're no longer pursuing suit, but it doesn't alleviate the fact that we spent thousands of dollars already in previous years, like filing motions, filing paperwork, having those legal fees just racked up. The other overage that we talked about before was the aerial photography. You'll remember that that's not really an overage because we didn't get the thing until late, so we paid them twice, but essentially we're not over. We paid the last year within the first 30 days of this year, so it's the same. Any other questions as reviewing this financials?
On, so we're at 94% through November. Do you see us coming in
I think we're probably gonna
okay
be-
in the year?
Yeah, we're gonna be a couple of points over what it looks like. I mean,
Couple over.
yeah, probably.
We have dedicated funds that we keep.
We have allocated funds that we don't know what the unassigned funds are. So we won't know the answer to that question. Let's say we didn't spend another penny, just hypothetically.
Yep.
Then we would be at a surplus for the year 2021. You won't know that information until April of 2022, when the auditor comes and does the audit
No,
and actually tells you, hey,
all right.
the district has $33,000 unassigned, and then you get to assign that. You can either give it back to the entities, you can put it towards a future, thing. You get to decide that at that point. I don't know if that's where you're going, Trev.
We have, just that we have funds set aside for legal.
One of the
Should
things
it-
that Mike and
should
I
it
talked
be-
about yesterday, in the public funds, deal brought it up, is that below the position of auditor, the president district does not do a balance sheet. And I think if we had a balance sheet along with this, and he and I are going to build that based upon last year's audit and then apply that to it. So we'll see what is the equity position as it relates to not only the revenue, but things that grew and or fell from depreciation standpoint, et cetera. We just need that in order to know where we really stand.
Yeah, because we have, well, I forget what the word is, auditors, but we have funds that we have designated for. And the reason I bring that up is not only legal, so we blow it out in legal, I mean, we put some in there, and also I believe maintenance, which, maintenance is pretty broad, but as we incur this project along with this, those funds are there for a reason, and if we go over before we were to collect from entities, I think we have those available, correct?
We do. We have what Jack indicated. We have designated funds. Part of the designated funds include the 3 month, like you just set aside 3 months of operating funds. You set that aside. I want to say that the legal, I don't have that in front of me right now. I don't have last year's audit in front of me, but I want to say that was 30,000. But I think that this board, even at that time, said, hey, we want to bump this up this next cycle. Like this would be an action that you would take to actually increase that amount of designated funds. And then furthermore, we did increase the budget for the coming year of 2022 for legal funds, but this board has already seen and you've already indicated to me that you want to make sure that we have enough legal funds in the future, so that we were going to increase that by a good factor this coming up cycle in 2023's budget. So that's all we can do. We can't prognosticate any further than that. You're doing a good job, but just by asking the questions, because we're having good
Well,
conversation.
my point is, we thought about some of this, and we do have some
Well,
emergency.
the broader answer to your question is, if what's in designated funds can be taken from to pay for attorney's fees based upon the verbiage of how it got put in there, then you can. If it's not, then
That's
you
what,
cannot. It can only be spent on
that's what I was wondering is, would it be, what can it be used for? We'll have to get those questions from.
Right. We don't know the answer at the moment, but.
We can have a conversation with our auditor, Mr. Streely, but I believe you can designate unassigned. We won't know those unassigned funds until we get the audit.
But I'm not worried about unassigned. I'm talking about our designated.
What we already have designated, I want to say that number was 30 over anything that was in the budget. It was
Right.
30,000.
Yes, you had some for repair, I believe. I can't remember. We've had some, and then.
The operating expenses was the largest portion of that designated funds by
Well,
a large
All
degree.
right, how are we treating the possible give back to FEMA? That's a designated fund by itself, is it not?
That's, again, we've actually accounted for that in our, that's Yeah, yes, our possible payback to FEMA was an unassigned fund that that this board designated as Harvey rebuild. But we've taken that, we've accounted for that in this estimate that we have of this 388.
Counted for it, how?
Accounted for it, the 135, 50,000 to future payback in FEMA and
You stripped it out. You're not counting it in that bottom line.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine, that's what I wanted.
And the FEMA thing, you're waiting for them to ask for it, right?
We've paid a portion of it back already, you'll remember, but then there's a possible 50 that, and then this board was really clear, like, let's not touch that.
Yeah.
So that's the reason it's not in this bottom
As
line.
long as the
Or
rest
it's
is still
accounted for
out
in the
there.
bottom line.
You're still well within the window.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we've learned, if you watch Galveston area, 10 years.
We're well within the window of take back, so. Okay, all this will be settled in the future. It was really just making the point that we had some designated funds that the board had previously for those who are here designated for these items. Should we be concerned about being over?
Yes. That's a good point. Before we get to item C, is there anything else on the financials? Before we get to item C, there's a couple of other items just that are noteworthy from the district. We're currently in the middle of a PVS study, which is the PVS study for the 2021 cycle. We're in the middle also of our map review, which is the 2022 cycle.
Right, PBS.
Property value study. Sorry about that. Property value study. Property value is really one of the two main instruments by which we're tested. Every odd year for our district, every odd year we're PBS study, property value study. Every even year we are map review, methods and procedures studied. And there's tests. There's basically a grade for each one of those. Property value study has the biggest impact on school funding if we were to be out of compliance. In 19, they said we were too low. We actually had to petition the state, petition the comptroller. We prevailed. We actually proved our point that we're not underappraising Aransas County, which is really strange. You have to go from one extreme to the other. You have to fight these people on this side. Okay, so that's it for that. The map review we're currently in, so we're doing those two things. This is every 2 years. It all bunches up like this. We're really, really busy right now. Although you can't see from the outside, we're really busy from a paperwork standpoint. The other thing of note, something that I failed to do, and I'm going to bring it to your attention because I just put these letters out in the community. Somewhere between my software company and my printer, I failed to put in the proper documentation with my notice. There's a 18-point boldface notification. What is that notification? It tells a property owner if their mailing address and their situs address matches, you may be eligible for a homestead. Again, I missed it. I put it in the software, checked the box, did not send the file over. I failed to do it. The previous year it was done. The bottom line is I sent out about 1,200 letters a week ago, 10 days ago, something like that, and basically notified those people that could possibly be eligible, that they might be eligible. I included a copy of a homestead application, and those people that turn in that stuff, and if they qualify, we'll give them a homestead application or homestead exemption. The reality is that once it was brought to my attention, this is the remedy. I'm making you aware of it in case you hear about it.
Who brought it to your attention?
It was actually brought to our attention through another proceeding that we had. I'm not going to mention the name of the proceeding, but we had another hearing and we looked at the actual notice of appraised value and it was devoid of the language that should have been there. And so I did a separate mailing to all of these individuals that potentially qualified. And we're getting people that come in and go, I thought I already signed up for this. You did. And so check, that one's done. I didn't know that I could do this. Well, where do you live? I live in Austin. Oh, okay. Well, then you don't qualify for this. And we are getting some that actually are they actually qualify. So we're finding out those people too. So there's 3 basic camps in which they fall in, and we're going through that right now. But I wanted you to be aware of it, that it was an issue. It was my mistake. Once it was brought to my attention, this is the remedy that was promulgated by my attorney, and it's the best way to handle it. So the last thing that we have on the chief appraiser's report is the, and I only put this on here without Brink's name because Brink made a point to make sure to focus on Mr. D over here. D, I want to say on behalf of the district, I don't know, I mean, I'll let the guys speak for themselves or the rest of the board speak for themselves, but from the district's standpoint, you've been, your steady hand, your calm nature, your attention to professionalism, all of those things have just been very calming to me, and can remember when I first took the reins, and Kevin leaving off, and then it's already a lot to chew off, and then to go through that first year, the hurricane, and then the recovery, and then we've got a freeze, and then COVID, and then the flood, and every step along the way when I've had interactions with you, that calming presence has been really, really encouraging to me, and I just want to say thank you. So,
Well, no, thank you. It's been a pleasure to work with you, as I told these folks a minute ago. It's one of the things that people ask, Mike, are you still on that committee? I said, well, one thing I don't worry about, wake up in the middle of the night, worry about Mike, your predecessors getting me in jail. So I appreciate your thoroughness and attention to detail, even though we sometimes fuss at you about that a little bit and the cost of it. But no, it's and you've got a great staff. We don't get to work with them on a very close personal basis, and that's the rules are the rules, and they're good rules. But you got a real solid bunch, and I think you manage them really well. So, and I said while we were in closed session, people that know me know I'm not particularly effusive, but this staff has been just damn near heroic since that hurricane. With everything that had to go on, and most of them had severe damage to their personal homes. They came through like champs, delivered when the entities asked for something that they really needed in the middle of an appraisal cycle that people in Dallas and Amarillo thought was just routine. You guys do a heck of a job. It's been a privilege.
it has been. It's been for us as well. And to bring, again, what I would say about you is just your encouragement. Always your encouragement is infectious. And it's always brightened my day. It's always given me a better outlook. And I thank you for that. I know that the staff does as well. And so guys, round of applause for both of you guys.
Just a couple comments about D is, all of us have served on various boards in different places, and every chairman of an organization doesn't have necessarily the integrity, the intelligence, and the competence to provide the leadership that you have done in the 9 years that I've been a part of this board. It's been a treat. It's also been a treat that we have to meet every month. But seriously, yeah, it's just
thank you.
It's really nice to have the competent, effective, and involved leadership that you have provided to the appraisal district. And we've got a very successful appraisal district, and you're part of that. Because if it had been a problem, you'd have been.
Well, this is true. No, thank you. I appreciate that. And like I say, it's a real pleasure to coach a winning team. And I appreciate all the contributions you made. Some of these things have been kind of a go-to guy for me. And I do appreciate that. You've had a few of your own issues to deal with.
Yep, it's part of life.
If we have another plague in the near future, like we've been brought upon in the last 4 years. I think the exodus out of town is gonna be massive.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've already told my staff that that was the last one.
Yeah.
We've had wind, rain,
Yeah,
freeze,
hurricane, COVID, freeze.
disease.
Frogs and locusts.
That's all we're waiting on. That's all I got, guys.
Okay, I think we're stand adjourned then. Thank y'all.
Steve.
Appreciate it.
Yes, we've got some cake out here, guys.
Oh, don't say that.
No.
Michael.
Did you guys adjourn?
Yes.
Adjourn?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't hear the adjourning.
There's no motion.
Be announced, we were adjourned.
Don't leave me like to do it here.